Good evening. Welcome to our Tuesday night hangout this June 21st. Tonight I'm talking with Matt Braddock, who's president of the Academy of Parish Clergy, and Bob Cornwall, who is both an author in his own right and and editor of the journal Sharing the Practice. Welcome to both of you.
It's good to
Tonight
be
we
here
want to
tonight.
Tonight we want to talk about the Academy. Energeon Publications publishes two book series that are edited and by members, a committee from the Academy. So let's start out with you, Matt. Tell us, what is the Academy of Parish Clergy?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for inviting me here to talk about the Academy tonight, which has become a really significant organization in my own life personally and professionally. So I'm always happy to talk about it and really honored to be president of the Academy for this year and next year as well. So the Academy of Parish Clergy was founded in the 60s as a Lilly Grant organization by a number of pastors who really wanted to pursue excellence in ministry and hold one another accountable to what those standards were. It was happening in a time before there were DMin programs and not as many professional organizations for clergy. And so they came up with things like standards of competency for ministers and standards of excellence and what it looked like to be a pastor scholar working in a parish setting and knowing that sometimes it's difficult to be in those positions. It can be alienating, it can be frustrating, and we need colleagues and we need support. And so a number of things came out of the formation of the Academy of Parish Clergy, and as time went on, not only did they adhere to these standards of practice and standards of excellence, but also started forming colleague groups across the country, a few of which are still in existence today. And so sometimes once a month or once a quarter, people in these chapters will come together and study a book or have some collegial conversation together, pray together, fellowship with each other. Some groups have retreats together. And I think this has become part of the real cornerstone of what the Academy has become for people, a chance to connect, a chance to share the practice with each other, a chance to be vulnerable with other clergy, and really receive the support and nourishment we need to keep us going in ministry. So we do have a chapter in Wisconsin right now, a Florida chapter that meets regularly, and we're we have a critical mass of people in Detroit area, and Bob can talk about our conference coming up maybe a little bit too next summer that's going to be happening in Detroit. So, and there's a lot of information about our academy online too, so people are always free, as always, to go online to our website, which is apclergy.org.
Okay, and apclergy.org I have put into the showcase. It's available now if you're watching on YouTube. That link is available to you right now to click. It would be in the right-hand side, upper right of your YouTube viewer. So that I've made that one available, apclergy.org. If you're watching on, rather, if you're on YouTube, you'll have to go through the join the conversation, which the banner will be across your screen. But in any case, once you've done that, the AP Clergy link will be available. I'm just going to hold up for a second. This is one of the books in the series, actually the second, David Moffat Moore, Wind and Whirlwind. Which probably is a set of terms that many pastors associate with times in their ministry. And he talks about that same thing, finding colleagues that you can talk to about things. And I've certainly heard that from pastors. Bob, what is the importance of having colleagues, especially colleagues, I would guess, that aren't in your hierarchy or your chain of command in your church? How does that work? What is the importance for a pastor?
Well, I think that for most of us, we could be part of a group that's denominational. The challenge is that when we do, there's always the sense of rivalry, perhaps, or concern that things might get back to upper levels or something like that. An ecumenical or interfaith group like this, the benefit is that we come from a variety of backgrounds, of traditions, and there is just a sense of comfort that you can just be yourself. You can share your interests and your insights that come from wherever you are. And I've found personally over the years that ecumenical clergy groups are the most supportive and helpful. And the Academy of Parish Clergy was designed for this very purpose, to create opportunities for people to come together, clergy to come together in supportive relationships that are ecumenical, and we're trying to make that much more interfaith as well.
Okay, I'm interested. I was just looking here and counting. Out of our catalog of about 160 books, 22 are written by members of the Academy. So obviously a relationship with the Academy of Parish Clergy has been good for Energeon Publications. 5 of those are in the book series that y'all edit, but that is, I hadn't realized, it just occurred to me, and I looked on our website, and our APC authors, it's 22 titles.
Are you sure it's that few?
Am I sure it's that few? There might be something.
We've probably written 22.
Well, there's quite a few. There's some from you, and of course Bill Tuck, who's very much involved with the Fellows, College of Fellows. Is that the correct term?
That's what. Yes. And we're working on redeveloping that going forward.
Would you want to give just a little bit of an idea, since we don't have Bill Tuck who I'm sure could spend a half an hour at least talking about it?
Well, the idea with the Fellows program, which initially was to create a category of clergy that were pursuing further excellence in study in their own ministry. You had to be a member of the Academy for at least 5 years or so. There's a program of self-study, and then building upon that study that would develop further. We haven't done much with it lately. Now we're trying to restart it. There was between the time that the Academy was started and a little bit later, these things called D-Mins came into being, and people thought having a doctor by their name was more important than having fellow. But I think that we're now realizing that there are a variety of ways in which we can affirm and grow. And the way I'm seeing it, because I'm starting the process of becoming a fellow, is that it basically is going to, as I see it, a way of accrediting me to be in a mentor relationship with other clergy. So that's the way I see it, as an acknowledgement of development, so that I can be a mentor, especially to younger clergy coming in.
Well, I really
can I interrupt here real quick and just add that I think that's interesting you say that, Bob, because you have a PhD, so you don't need the fellow title necessarily, but you still see value in having that mentoring role. I think for some people in the Academy, like our latest fellow became one because she didn't have another way in her faith tradition to be credentialed. And so this also became an opportunity for her to kind of explore a little bit more in depth what some of these values are behind ministry and really live into those too. So I think as we retool this, there's a lot of different options and opportunities for people.
Right, and I think that's what we're working on developing.
Yep. Well, I wanted to add in here that having attended now several of the conferences, this is something that I've come to enjoy. A lot of times attending a conference for me is just a lot of work sitting behind a book table and talking, but it really is a pleasure to see the relationships between the pastors who can share in their experience and help one another out, and you can hear these conversations as all over as you walk there. You see people go, the younger or less experienced pastors exchanging, or even two of more experienced pastors. Yeah, we all lived through that, and so I've found that to be just a lot of fun, I would guess, for me to see, because sometimes I talk to pastors who are just burned out and need somebody to talk to, and it's nice to see that happening, and so that resonates for me.
And I think that's important. The statistics for burnout for clergy and clergy leaving the ministry are horrific. I think it's 75 to 80% of clergy leave within 5 years. So Matt and I we've made it through those trends
day by day.
But one of the keys to, I think, to longevity is having those organization, a structure like the academy where we can encourage and support one another. And Matt and I think, and several of us have come into the academy after having a difficult experience and finding the camaraderie and the support that we find in the academy has been able to sustain us. And even though we're not able to see each other, many of us, more than once a year, those relationships that we've developed over time are becoming stronger and stronger and powerful.
Yes.
Okay, well, that might be a good point to lead into the next annual conference, although I will mention first I have put up a link also to the list of books by Academy authors that Energeon Publications authors. Now, we're not the only publisher that publishes Academy authors, but I have gotten, I think, a lion's share here, possibly by going to the conferences and talking to people. But Bob, you and colleagues in your area, because I think Matt mentioned a kind of critical mass in the Detroit area of people who are getting involved, are hosting this coming annual conference late next April 2017?
It's April 25th through the 27th. That's a Tuesday through a Thursday. We're meeting at, I got the ad from out, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. We're at the St. Paul of the Cross Retreat Center in Detroit. So we're not in the suburbs, we're not in the rural. We will be meeting at a Catholic retreat center that is located in the city of Detroit, not very far from the local Detroit Metro Airport. And it's a great airport. It's a Delta hub, so if you can get here from everywhere on multiple airlines, so there's no excuse. We're here in Detroit, so we're kind of in the middle of the country. So if we're in good driving distance, even for Matt in Maryland, I expect he could get in his car and drive here. Not quite as fast as he could fly, but he could still.
He won't, but he could.
He could. And I'm really excited. We have our keynote speaker is a Korean Presbyterian woman, theologian named Grace Jisun Kim. She has written a number of books, and the title, where we're calling it, is Embracing the Other, Breaking Down Barriers in the Spirit. And I'm really excited about Grace coming. We're going to do some things that are to try to break down some barriers, especially across religious lines, not just denominational lines, but religious lines, to expand our witness and work across a variety of faith traditions and ethnic and racial experiences as well, and background. So I'm really, Grace is excited about coming. She's a younger theologian that is beginning to make her mark, and she's excited about coming, and and we're excited about her. Last year we had Deanna Thompson, who's a feminist theologian, Lutheran, really powerful story. And so we've had some really excellent presenters. Robert Jones, right, Matt?
Yep. Yep. Robbie Jones from PRRI. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we're having some. I mean, so there's the camaraderie and the experience of that, plus high-end presenters that you get some personal one-on-one time with. So
that's really important, Bob. I think to highlight that the size of our conference, we're not talking 200 or 300 people here. We're talking maybe up to 50 pastors and practitioners who want to come together, and a lot of us know each other, and of course we're welcome to anyone coming and all kinds of new visitors. But having this very relational experience with the presenters, our Book of the Year, Reference Book of the Year award winner, one of our awardees last year was Fleming Rutledge, and really known, especially in the Festival of Homiletics world. I don't know a lot of conferences where you're going to get to sit down and have dinner with Fleming Rutledge afterwards and pick her brain on her books and what she's thinking about and where she is at life. And you get that at the Academy of Parish Clergy Conference. You get to talk to authors, Nergion authors, and others who are writing and pastoring and trying to figure out how to do all this all at the same time and making their mark in their ministries. And it's just a really great opportunity to have these very relational experiences with other people who are working in churches and in the academic world as well. I really cherish those times.
Okay. Well, Matt, other than the benefits of contact with colleagues and being able to go to the conference, what goes with being a member? Why should somebody become a member of the Academy?
Right. For me, I think the most important piece has been being part of what Etienne Wagner calls a community of practice. I think that the Academy is really turning into that in some ways, having intentional, formative community, even for some of us if we only meet once a year, to pursue excellence in ministry together. We also have a journal that we publish quarterly, and Bob's the editor of that. And we give that to all of our members as part of the annual membership fee. And not only does that have some feature articles helping ministers pursue excellence in ministry and share the practice, but numerous book reviews, relevant book reviews of books that have been very recently published, mostly by members, sometimes by others, and that's a very valuable resource too. I love to see what some of my colleagues are reading and what some of their perspectives are on some books that are coming out right now. Of course, we can't have too many books, so that's a great resource too. There is a chance to be part of colleague groups. There's a chance. We're actually exploring the idea of some non-geographical colleague groups too, now that the technology supports things like this where we can meet virtually and support one another too. And I think the other benefit for me is just knowing I have a group of people out there who are praying for me and supporting me and checking in with me, and I'm doing the same for them as well. It's a great comfort to me to know I have some colleagues in the Academy that I feel like I don't have to compete with people. I don't have to brag to people. I can be my authentic self and be accepted for who I am, and that's been a real gift to me in my ministry.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to move over to Bob on that because you brought up sharing the practice, the journal.
Yes.
That everybody gets, and we had made the arrangement that viewers you need to contact us within the week, that is before next Tuesday. But if you contact Nergion Publications, you can see at the bottom of the screen while I'm speaking, you see energion.co. If you just add pubs at the beginning, pubs at energion.co, and just ask send us your address and ask for a free copy of Sharing the Practice. You will get a copy of the next issue. We will pass those on to Bob Cornwall. You can get a copy of the next issue and get an idea of what's going on. So just, if that's the email, pubs@energeon.co. It actually works in energeon.com. It's just a synonym. Don't worry about which one you type in. Or if you go to the link that we have there for the APC books that's in the showcase link right now, you'll get a contact form, or you'll have our phone number. You're welcome to call and give us your contact information that way. And we will talk. I have copies to show of the series books that Energeon produces with the Academy, but I'd like to hand it to Bob first to talk a little bit about Sharing the Practice, since he's the editor. Unless Matt stole all your thunder, Bob.
Well, Matt said most of the benefits. They're basically two components to the journal. One has to do with articles, and the other component are book reviews. They're written by, for the most part, they're written by clergy. The articles are written by clergy, as well as the reviews, and so they're reflective of the life of practice. They sometimes deal with biblical issues, or maybe preaching or pastoral care. They could be about the concerns that we have in the life of ministry. First article I ever wrote before I joined the Academy had to do with writing. I wrote an article about moving from a congregation in which I had resigned to another congregation, and found healing in that experience, that second congregation. And so I was able to express. It had kind of a cathartic kind of situation. But it's an opportunity. The journal provides clergy the opportunity to explore ideas and books and resources, and to share that with others. And I've been the editor for almost 10 years, so I've been working with it for a long time, and I find it to be a valuable experience. And I welcome contributions. Because if I don't get enough contributions, then they get a ton of book reviews from me. So, which is fine if you like to know what I'm reading. But I think Matt would like to read about other people's reading habits, not just mine. So,
Amen.
But it's an excellent. I think it's a fine journal, if I say so myself, and I think it can be very beneficial for people.
Okay, well. I know that you take a lot, because you even took one from me. So
That's a good article too.
Okay, you're also the editor of the book series that we do. We have 2 book series. I'm going to put these up and welcome comments, because besides informing people, part of this is about selling books, as well as hopefully encouraging people to join the Academy and become part of some of this excitement. I find having more than 20 books with a publisher as small as Energeon Publications is from this one organization shows, in my view, an exciting level of intellectual activity and passion for pastoring, because many of those books have to do with being pastors. Now, I'm not bringing all of the ones by members of the Academy. I wanted to bring the ones about the from the book series, and also if either of you want to comment on any of these, feel free. I'm holding up the first series that we started was called Conversations in Ministry. This is the first volume, Clergy Table Talk by Kent Groff, and it's a little hard for me to describe this. This really covers a lot of ministry ground, conversing, talking about ministry issues. Do you think that would be a good one-liner, Bob?
Right. Well, that first series was designed to create briefer books that would be able to be utilized largely in clergy groups, whether they were academy groups or not, to encourage conversation. So there's chapters with discussion questions at the end, and often with that there are some assignments or experiences that are suggested. So it's designed. I think we want to try to keep them 100 pages or shorter. A lot of clergy find it difficult to put a lot of time into lengthy books, but a book that's 100 pages that they can read and then read in conversation with other clergy becomes very valuable.
Now,
I'm using Kent's book as a required text in a self-care and ministry course I'm teaching to MDiv students this summer too, because I think one of the great things Kent does is take ideas about clergy self-care and take them out of the checklist. These are the 50 things you need to do, which actually adds more things for us to add to our list of things to do, and puts it back into the realm of spirituality too, which is Kent's specialty.
Right.
And he's, what I want to say, having met Kent, is he is he is what he talks about. I mean, you get there when he was at the conference and I was watching him, he'd be the one that, gets people into a time of prayer or something of that nature, and just really was kind of interesting to watch.
Right, and that book is definitely, as Matt said, very focused on developing spirituality within the life of ministry.
Which, oddly enough, I would say, from my conversations with pastors who are currently pastoring churches, your spirituality seems to be about the first thing to take a hit when you're trying to exercise the pastoral leadership.
Right.
Well, the second book in that series really goes with the same thing. David Moffat Moore, Wind and Whirlwind, and the subtitle, Being a Pastor in a Storm of Change. It's a little more directly focused to one issue, but to be honest with you, when I was reading this, I thought a lot of people who are not pastors and have had to deal with changes in jobs and so on and so forth could really do well with the content of this book.
Right. Again, it is a little bit more focused than Kent's book, but it is. We all experience struggles in ministry. Many of us find that we have to move on because of changes that congregations may not be ready for, that we would like them to have, or vice versa. And David's book is really rooted in his own experiences, which led him to the academy, which is expressed in there too. So.
And I think notably for David's experience that he went through this intense time of conflict in his congregation and chose to stay afterwards. So like one of those few people who didn't leave ministry altogether, not just leave churches, but
right.
Stayed with that congregation for a little while after that time of turmoil, and speaks to that in that book.
Right.
Okay, well, we are running short on time, but I do want to show the other series, which we call Guides to Practical Ministry. And as humorous as some people find it, I often describe these as the second series was because we had books that had to be longer than 100 pages. But they're still extremely practical. Let me come in, because I'm looking at the time, with this one by Ruth Fletcher, Thrive, Spiritual Habits of Transforming Congregations. The reason I bring that up is because you're talking about how do you lead change in a congregation, and David Moffat Moore is, I think, a survival guide on that. Well, of course, Kent Groff for maintaining your spirituality, which is critical. Ruth Fletcher is talking about how do you work with people to transform attitudes and to make necessary changes in a congregation. What makes a transforming congregation, and so as you can see, it's a little longer than the other books, but it's a very practical a very practical guide, I think. And I did interview her on one of these for, I think, a full hour, asking questions about how you do that, which is one of the most interesting times I've had for an hour on video.
And my clergy group just finished reading that. We read it up through the year, and so local clergy groups, and so found it very insightful and thought-provoking. So it's an excellent book.
Yeah. One of the interesting things there is she started by going on a sabbatical and going to churches that had a reputation for being transforming and saying, okay, what happened? How did you do this? So I found that an interesting thing. Before I give you both a chance to conclude, because I'm running out of time, I'll put these out. They have Overcoming Sermon Block, which I think is something that just about any pastor, probably the one thing that, as somebody who speaks and teaches as much as I do, the thing that I look in awe at pastors is producing a sermon that is not, shall we say, either soporific or confusing every week. That is really a task, or at least it sounds like to me. So Bill Tuck, Overcoming Sermon Block. This was the first in the Guides to Practical Ministry. And In Changing Times, a guide for reflection and conversation. And this is dealing with, again, with changes in the church, but dealing with healing in congregations. Ron Higdon, who wrote this, has consulted with many churches that are in the process of transition, and he's particularly talking about the time of transition in congregations. So, go ahead.
The book is really rooted in Ron's experience as an intentional interim minister, and so that's kind of where it started. Was a book about interim ministry, and it kind of expanded a bit so that it's valuable not just those who are doing interim ministry, but to all who are engaged in ministry. So.
Yeah, that's one of the things I constantly have to remind authors, is that a book can take on a life of its own and run away with you.
Right.
When you're trying to write. And of course, Ron has a lot of stories to tell from that experience. I want to give you both a chance, since we've just run over by just a few minutes, but I'll remind everybody we do have the links, apclergy.org for more information, and our Energion Publications list of books by APC authors, which will also give you all of the contact information. If you would like to let us know your address, I will get that to Bob, and he'll see that you get a copy of the next issue of Sharing the Practice. So, Matt, I'll give you a chance here for some final remarks.
Yeah, sure. And thanks again, Henry, for hosting this tonight, and just having this conversation and the opportunity to talk about the Academy. I'll talk about the Academy with anyone at any time. So if people want to contact me, my email address is on the APC webpage. I think it's president@apclergy.org. And happy to answer questions or inquiries about the Academy, or if you want to learn more. I think that our partnership with Energion is one of the best relationships we've made over the recent years, too. So just really enjoying this partnership, and seeing so many Academy authors. It's part of your lineup, too. So thanks again for your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, I will agree with Matt in his invitation. What I'll do is say there's two ways of getting to know us. One has to do with subscribing, joining and subscribing, and getting the journal. You'll get a sense of who we are. And the other is join us in Detroit in April. Then you get to meet Matt, and you get to meet me, and you get to meet you, Henry, and Grace.
It could be better. And you don't have to be a member of the Academy to attend the conference.
That's right.
It's open to anyone.
You just have to pay, and it's
pay up.
Our conferences, I'm thinking it's going to be about $300, and that includes the everything, food and the a place to stay, and the experience of being in Detroit. Uh, so you can see that Detroit is different than you, both is different and the same as you have heard. But it'll be a great time. We've got a great speaker. We've got great people to be there, and I think you'll discover by being there that if you're involved in ministry in any form, that you'll want to be part of our community.
Okay, well, thank you both for being here, and I will put in my own word on the conference that I go to different conferences. This one is definitely worth the cost. You will benefit. You'll be happy that you went there. Thanks to both Matt and Bob, and we will be talking about this more between now and next year. I want to start thinking about getting your time open there April 25 through 27 for the conference, because I'll tell you, you won't regret it. Again, thanks to both of you, and good night, everybody. We'll be on again next Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Central, 8 Eastern. Plan to join us for some exciting conversations.